Hello and welcome back to the show, Chris.
Thanks for having me back on. It's a pleasure to be back.
Yes, you were on not that long ago, but you're doing this exciting thing that we're going to talk about in a little bit, and I just couldn't resist the urge to have you come on and talk about it. So let's get to know you a little bit better, and then we will get into what it is that you're doing now. What's a current show that you're watching that you like?
I've just started watching, so I don't know if you know Taskmaster.
No.
It's this UK, how do you describe it? It's like a panel show, um, sort of quiz show, game show type thing. But basically, five comedians they all go to this house separately and get set a bunch of tasks, and then it's all pre-recorded, and the show is them sitting in a studio watching it back, but they don't know how each other have done in doing the same tasks, and it's just very fun, very silly.
I think I have heard of that show. In fact, my son who loves comedy, I think he had me watch part of it. So,
Right. Yeah. Okay.
yes.
So they just started as of last week, season 17, and so
Oh my
yeah,
God.
for a UK show as well, it's quite something to be on season 17. But it's my favorite show, and I kind of enjoy it as well when they come out with a new series because it's watching one a week, rather than having it all just to binge and then you're done with it. I kind of like the fact that I'm waiting every week for a new episode to come out. So there'll be 10 episodes. So yeah, it's just
Right.
started at the time of recording.
Oh, I like that. Season 17. Excuse me, that really speaks to the staying power of the format, doesn't it? Having that many seasons. Are they annual, as in yearly, the seasons, or
They
do
do,
they just
they
kind of,
do no, they do two or three a year.
okay, got it.
And I think for me it's so significant as well because in lockdown, me and my housemates at the time, we all created our own version of the show and set ourselves tasks and
Oh
stuff.
my
So it has an
God.
extra meaning in that regard too. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Chris, you are such a creative individual. I really appreciate that about you. I really do. Oh my gosh, that is so fun. Okay, who is your biggest crush growing up?
I mean, it's probably someone I was at primary school with, but if I think of like, I mean, that's like, in real life crush, but then if I think of like on TV crushes or whatever,
Uh-huh.
it was probably either like the pink Power Ranger or like Misty from Pokemon or something. So I was Pokemon
Oh
obsessed. So it was probably
God.
one of those.
Oh, that is so fun. Actually, those are all fun because, you're right. You probably did have a little crush on somebody in primary school, and then the pink Power Ranger. That is so good. And then Misty of Pokemon. I mean, come on. Those are great, great answers. Great answers. Oh, I love it. And see, this is why this is so fun. And that's why,
Yeah.
we both place a very high value on conversations, and this is one of the reasons why, getting to know other people. What's something that you're most afraid of? And we can go dark and deep, but the idea behind this question is a little more on the irrational side, but I'll go any way you want to go.
I mean, it used to be dogs.
Okay.
Would have been my fear. I think I'm way, 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 way better with them now. But I would say a rabid dog would be my thing I'm
Oh my
most fearful of.
gosh. Yeah.
And there's good reason behind that. I spent a summer teaching English in Thailand quite a few years ago, and like in the little village I was in, there were a couple of rabid dogs, and it was really
Oh my
so that's actually
God.
why I'm so much better with them now, like in terms of just dogs generally, because that was incredibly scary. And then you kind of like have that versus, going around to someone's house and they have a dog. Like, yeah, so
Wow. Oh my gosh. And I remember well that you're a very well-traveled individual, and I did not know that you spent a summer teaching in Thailand. So
yeah.
it makes a lot more sense, your answer of rabid dog, if you've actually been around a
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
rabid dog, and you made it plural, so more than
Mm,
one rabid dog.
yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yes, I can't say in my years of being on this earth I've ever encountered a
Mm.
rabid dog. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I got to ask a little follow-up here. the fear of dogs, did that develop in Thailand, or was it already there from an earlier time?
No, that's from a young age, I would have said. I don't think there was any particular, like one or two particular instances. It was more just maybe like a series of things where just really barky dogs would just kind of get to me and set me off. And I never grew up with pets, so
Okay.
yeah, I think it just kind of developed from that, to be honest. And yeah, but then the rabbit dogs meant that I'm far less scared of just general domesticated dogs now, so that's a good thing.
Well, talk about a very controversial desensitization way to
Mm,
do it, right? Therapy,
mm.
like be around
Yeah,
rabid
yeah,
dogs, and
yeah.
then the regular dogs won't seem so scary anymore. Well, you know, a lot of kids as they grow up, particularly if you don't have pets, you know, can have a fear of animals because they
Hmm.
can be, you know, they can be unpredictable,
Yeah,
depending on the dogs you're around or the cats, what have you.
yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, I, that was just a colorful, fun answer to
Mhm.
that question, and definitely, definitely unexpected. What's a random fact most people would not know about you?
Um, I've broken the same arm 3 times.
Oh my gosh. Okay, you got to tell us about that.
Well, yeah, the first 2 times was literally a case of not learning from mistakes. I was pretty young. I don't know how young, like very young, and was jumping up and down on my mum's bed and fell off. And then I did the exact same thing again. I don't know, maybe a couple of years later. And then the third time was when I was like 15 or something, and I fell on a climbing frame and got my arm stuck in a rope thing, and it was
Oh
pretty
my
horrendous.
gosh.
But yeah, the same arm, my left arm, 3 times.
Okay, was it the same bone or the same arm?
I don't know if it was the same bone or not, but it was definitely
Oh my
like in
gosh.
between elbow and shoulder, like somewhere
Oh.
like, within that. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, that there can't be that many people, right, who have broken the same limb
Yeah.
multiple times unless you're got a very high impact kind of an occupation or pastime. Oh my goodness. Okay. What's advice would you give your 10-year-old self?
It's a good question. Probably just to chill out a little bit. And maybe something along the lines of like perfection is impossible. So just chill
Ah,
out a bit. Yeah.
yes. That's so good. And when you're 10, you really, the world is sort of small. You don't realize it, right? It seems small because there's not a lot you have to compare it to yet. Even if you
Yeah.
watch a ton of TV, it's still small. And things are so big when you're 10, right? And you look back and you think, oh my gosh, but that's normal. That's the norm of being that age. That's one of the reasons I really like this question,
Hmm.
because I feel like it gives you a moment to sort of reflect back and think,
Yeah.
what would have been some good advice for your 10-year-old self? And I think we haven't had this one. We've had some really, I mean, they've all been fantastic. I just love, love, love this. Okay, now it's time for our deep dive. And as we mentioned, Chris has been on the show not too long ago, but I'm so intrigued and excited by Chris, what he's bringing to this space and to the world. And so refresh our memories with what you're doing, and then bring it all the way to where you want to go, where you're going.
Yeah. So, as we discussed in our previous episode, which people can go back and listen to, I've recently started a conversations movement. So, the
Mhm.
idea being that I'm trying to encourage people to deepen their connections through having intentional and meaningful chats with their family and friends. So, I've launched a podcast of my own. I'm going to start running events soon too, and yeah, the whole idea is that, or the whole kind of background is that I had a personal project where I started interviewing my family and friends about their lives, and now I've experienced so many benefits from that that now I just want other people to experience those benefits as well. And so yeah, I've started this movement called That Conversations Movement, And yeah, what I'm now doing and will be going ahead with next week is Conversations Week. So the
Oh,
idea there is it's a campaign to encourage people to reconnect and to catch up with someone that, maybe it's someone you haven't spoken to in a while. Maybe it's just a friend that you've been meaning to catch up with over the last month or two, and you just keep kind of missing each other like ships in the night. But the point is to be quite intentional with our time during Conversations Week, and to have a conversation, to catch up with someone, a friend, a family member. So, that can take many forms. You could go and have a beer or a coffee with someone. You could go and visit a relative. You could just have a call to catch up. And the idea being that I want as many people as possible during the week. So it's between the 6th and the 12th of May. So during that week, I want as many people as possible to be reconnecting with one another, and yeah, just enjoying the kind of what that brings in terms of being able to sustain connections with people, and deepen those connections as well by making the time, and I guess, breaking the ice potentially as well. I think a lot of the time we drift away from one another, and all it takes is one of us to reach out to the other
right.
person, but we kind of put that off because maybe we're nervous that they don't respond or whatever it is, or just life gets in the way. But yeah, I think being able to set a week aside where this is the time for you to, almost like this is the
Right.
excuse for you to use
Right.
to reach
Right.
out.
It
So yeah.
is a really good excuse to reach out to somebody you've been meaning to reach out to. And you could even use this as kind of cover for why you're reaching out. Not that you have to, but hey, I'm a part of this thing. How can people participate? I mean, yes, we can reach out to somebody in whatever form that looks like, meeting in real life, talking on the phone, whatever. How do you want people to? Do you want people to let you know they're doing this? What does that look like?
Yeah, I would absolutely love people to let me know that they're doing it. There'll be like little graphics and things going around on social media that people can share to say that they're participating in this, just to raise awareness. So, I mean, that can happen from now if you're listening, before Conversations Week or during. Ultimately, though, I'd love people to let me know about the conversations they've been having. So what I've done is I've created a little form on our website, conversationsmovement.com, and there's a little form there that people can fill out to say they've had a chat with someone. This is who they chatted to, and this is how it went. And the idea there being that it just provides a story or a testimony that I can share, which then will encourage other people to do something similar, whether it's within Conversations Week or even beyond it, and kind of showcase the value, I guess, of reconnecting. So yeah, I'd absolutely love people to get in touch, whether it's on that form or even just messaging me on social media. So on
Right.
Instagram at Conversations Movement, and just saying, hey, I caught up with my friend. This is what we chatted about. It was
Uh-huh.
great. Thank you. Like, something along those lines, as simple as that is, it does make a difference, because me being able to share those stories will help to encourage others to do the same. So yeah, that would be great. But also, even if people don't share that they've done it, just the idea that we're trying to promote people reconnecting, and then a future Conversations Week might take a different form, but the idea
Right.
being that people then get used to these kind of weeks of deepening their connections, and then I like the idea of people participating and reconnecting with someone, and then it doesn't necessarily mean that suddenly you have to become best friends again or whatever. It might just be that then you check in 6 months, or. But I
Right.
think
Right.
what will happen is, because through my experiences, when you make that effort to reach out and you have that catch up, it's way more likely that the next time they'll reach out to you and
Mm.
reciprocate that. So
Mhm.
yeah, I think that that's just something that people can bear in mind as well, that it might just spark a catch up every 6 months or a year, or it doesn't have to be. But I mean, it could easily mean that you're
Right.
way more reconnected as well. So yeah.
Right. So a couple questions here. One is, if people feel like they don't quite know what to ask, do you provide or offer any guidance? I think we touched on that a little bit in our last conversation.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm offering people just the simple like messages you could send, just, hey, it's been a minute, I'd love to catch up, just something
Yeah,
like that.
right.
I think, the temptation will be to maybe make it quite vague and say like it'd be great to catch up sometime. But I think that the idea with Conversations Week is that you can actually skip a step and jump to I'd love to catch up during this week and make it a bit more
Yes.
specific and directed
Right.
so that it just leads to like, let's just get to it. Let's just meet up or have a call or whatever it is. But I honestly like people will do this in their own way. Like every relationship's different, right? So the way you open the conversation will be different depending on who you're talking to. But one way that I often do it is I'll just share something about my life when I'm messaging someone. So a little update like, hey, it's been a minute. Just wanted to let you know, like, I'm doing this. I've got a new job or whatever it is.
Yeah.
How are you? What's been going on? Be great to hear from you. It would be great to catch up.
Right.
Another way people can open the conversation is by just sharing the sort of what I'm talking about in terms of graphics about conversations. We can sharing that with someone or tagging someone in it and going, hey, I've seen this thing. It'd be great to catch up. And just
Right.
having it like that. Because, like I'm saying, it doesn't have to be completely out the blue. It doesn't have to be someone you haven't spoken to in 10 years. This could just be
Yeah.
that friend that we've all got that someone that we've been meaning to check in with, but it's ended up suddenly it's 2, 3 months. And you're like, oh, the time's flown by.
Right.
But you know that if you message them, they're going to respond. And so it's just a case of sending them out, hey, I've seen this Conversations Week thing. Do you want to get together? Do you want to have a
Right.
call during that week?
What have you noticed so far? Because you just started the podcast. I think you've had, I'm going to say 3 episodes or so, maybe 4.
Yeah.
What are you noticing so far as you develop this further and challenge us in the best way to really reconnect with each other?
Yeah, so I guess the podcast is a little bit more of a deeper dive with people that are kind of in your life already. So the way the podcast works is I have a friend on every episode and there's a different topic and a different question. So, one of the episodes, the topic was live music, and the question was tell me about a memorable gig you've been to. Another topic was laughter and who in your life makes you laugh regularly.
Yeah.
So the idea there being that I'm having this conversation with my friend, and then I pose that question to the listener of like, if you'd like to have a similar conversation, why don't you ask someone in your life this question? And so it's obviously in the very early stages, but I'm hoping that people will have that similar conversation and will reach out to me and tell me that they've had that chat. In terms of the reconnecting piece, I think. I mean, the idea is this is a movement, right? So it's quite a slow build, but the idea is that it ripples out. So I've started
Right.
this, and I've influenced a couple of my friends who have gone on to have conversations with people in their lives. And then when people hear about that, then it kind of moves out into this ripple effect. And so I
Right.
guess the more people that participate, the more of a knock-on effect that will have. And ultimately
Right.
then, people they won't necessarily need someone to be telling them, oh, there's this Conversations Week thing. They'll just be doing it a
Right.
bit more naturally.
Right.
That's
And
the
is
hope.
that sort of the goal
Yeah,
to making
totally.
it just, yeah, just I do believe that right now this is something we need, because I think, and I think we've chatted about this a bit prior to this, is there's so many ways to communicate with people that's not even like a Zoom call. Like you and I are looking at each other, we're talking to
Yeah,
each other in real time. Now it's just, text them, DM them,
yeah,
email them. Like, don't actually talk to them, whatever you do. Don't
yeah,
talk. Just
yeah.
give them info. Is that part of, I know that a lot of this was inspired by Tuesdays with Maury, but I mean, isn't that something that you see right now? And you're younger than I am, so you probably really notice that too in your peer group, in your age group.
Yeah, definitely. I think we have a lot of interactions, and almost like we base a lot of relationships now off the way we interact on social media, and it's exchanging a like, or you liking someone's story or sending them a message being like, hey, that looks great, or happy birthday, or and it's just very, very shallow. And to
Hmm.
me it's not that meaningful. And there are advantages that we can keep in touch with people across the world, and that's amazing, and I love doing that.
Yes.
But I think that it is quite shallow, and you need the actual conversation, even if it's over Zoom or whatever, or over the phone. We need that actual conversation to really get a sense of how people are and what people are going through, and how their life is going. And I think that there's just a power in taking the time and showing a bit of initiative and saying to someone, hey, I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear what's going on in your life.
Yeah.
And then exchanging that sort of back and forth how people are. I think that's incredibly powerful. And I think we overlook it because we feel more connected than ever because we've got so many different connections, because we've got so many followers and people we follow. And, you know, as I say, we exchange these messages and these likes and stuff. But,
Yeah.
you know, I think it's very shallow and it's not actually connecting. And we're kind of
Oh,
losing something a
yes.
little bit. And so, yeah, I hope that Conversations Week is one initiative among a host of others, including like podcasts like yourself, where, yeah, we kind of can encourage people to consider how they're connecting and to get back to, I guess, having more deep connections. And whether it doesn't mean like it's not necessarily about quantity here, right? It's about quality.
Right.
So having the quality deep connections. And yeah, I think that, yeah, Conversations Week is a good starting point to reconnecting that then could potentially lead to something a bit more.
Are you thinking of having this be an annual event?
I'm not entirely sure yet. I think in my head I have that the maximum I would do it would be once a quarter.
Okay, got it.
Potentially more likely, I think it would be a sort of every 6 months. So I'm thinking maybe like April, May time, and then sort of like October, November time potentially.
Right.
And the idea being that, yes, it'll be another Conversations Week, but it might be a different activity in the next
Right.
one. So instead of having a call to catch up with someone or reconnecting with someone, it's maybe you swap affirmations with someone, or you interview someone about their life, or, you know,
Right.
something like that. There might just be a different activity, but the idea being that it becomes, you know, maybe a couple of times a year that people get used to this, but it mixes it up a little bit with a different activity.
Right. Has anything surprised you about what you're doing in this conversations movement? Has anything surprised you?
Um, Well, it's still very early days, and I'm yet to host my first event, so I might have a better answer after I host the first event.
Okay.
And the idea with the event is people come to the event. It's in a pub, and they come along with a friend or a family member, and they engage in a couple of conversation activities. So I guess we'll kind of see what comes out of that. But I think I maybe have been a little bit surprised by. Um, it's almost like the hesitancy people have to engage in any of the activities that I'm talking about. So you know,
Mm,
people say, I love what you're doing. Like that's kind of the universal reaction is like, I love what you're doing and I would love to do something like that. And it's kind of that, okay, and so why don't you? And so that's kind of where I'm trying to get to, is like trying to make things super actionable, super practical for people. So I think sometimes people just need an excuse or need a helping hand to be able to instigate a conversation with
right.
someone. And that's really what I'm trying to get to. But yeah, it has surprised me to some extent in terms of I kind of thought and maybe hoped I'd have a few more people having done something similar to what I've done up till now. But as I say, it's very early days. And I think that it's one of
Right.
those where it's not for everybody. I get that. But also I think it is for a lot of people to do something like this. And I think it just is going to take, it's going to take a few people to take action, and that will, as I said before, ripple
Right.
out and hopefully inspire others. So
Right.
that it doesn't just seem like it's me that's the one doing everything, but other people are doing it.
Right. Chris is in charge of all conversations. Yes. Okay, so you're talking about events, and I love that idea. I really do. And you're talking about you're actually going to host it. And so it would, can you, or is it too early to start, sort of to say, do you have an event planned? I mean, you've got one planned. So is
Yeah.
that an
So
in
I,
real life one, as
yeah,
in, where
yeah.
you live and that kind of a thing? Okay, great.
Yeah, so I'm in Toronto. So when this episode comes out, we'll have just had the event. But yeah, basically, I'm having an event in Toronto. It's in a pub, 20 people. It's 2 hours. You come along, you buy a ticket. It's for two people. You come along with a friend or a family member, and yeah, you then engage in a couple. So I'm kind of facilitating,
Mm,
and basically everyone will get a few minutes to write down 3 words they'd use to describe the other person, and then 10 minutes to do that exchange those words. and then we'll have a break, and then we'll come back together. And again, you'll write down some experiences, memories that you share with this other person, and then we'll have about 15, 20 minutes to exchange those. The idea being that you're doing that with your friend. Meanwhile, there's 9 other pairs of people doing it in the room as well.
Right.
Probably with a bit of time in between where people can reflect or share what that was like. And I'll have little prompt cards and stuff to help people too. But yeah, the idea being that people will have engaged in the activities, are then hopefully more likely to go and want to do that again with someone else in their own time, or even to come back to another event and bring someone else.
So did you have to organize that with the pub? Did you have to say, hey, I want to have this thing? And so it's an actual event at the pub. It's not like you're coming in with 20 people, right? I mean,
I've managed to find a place that have been super light touch, which is great in terms of they've just gone, I've essentially booked a space out for 20 people as if it was like my birthday or something. And,
okay.
then you book out a space in a pub like that. That's all it is. So there'll be other people in the pub at the time, but we'll just be up in this little area,
Right.
and space enough for 20 people. And the idea being that it's, super informal. There's no microphone or screen or anything like that. I'm just going to just sort of open it and then get people to engage in the activities. But yeah, the pub have
Right.
been great because, as you can imagine, people will buy a drink when they attend. So the pub, they're not exactly not making any
Right.
money off of
Right.
it. But yeah.
I don't know what, and moving forward, if you picture sort of having different little places almost like worldwide at the same time, or countrywide or continent wide or whatever, but a way to sort of check in with each other. And yeah, I just see a lot of I don't really see any downside to this. And when you said it's not for everyone, I think the part that might not be for everyone is maybe sharing the experience for going to the pub per se, because there's that fear of public speaking. I'm married to somebody who has it. My mother has it. They don't want to be called on at all, ever. There are people
Yeah.
like that. But then the rest, I mean, I'm like, I wish I live in Toronto. I would go to your event, no doubt about it. And it would be a blast. I would have so much fun. But as you're talking, I picture this growing, and I just think it's so exciting. And I guess I wondered too, have you been able to reach out to some of the media in Toronto, or are you just kind of slow? You're kind of, want to have a slow roll and then kind of see what you think of the whole thing?
Yeah, I think it's more a slow thing. Like I want to do a couple of events just to test them out and kind
Yeah.
of see how they go. In terms of what you're talking about there about imagining, in different locations, like I absolutely have that in my head.
Good.
I think this is such a thing where it's all about just finding the right venue, like finding a venue that are just like, yeah, sure, here's a space, a couple hours, whatever.
Yeah.
And yeah, I could imagine this, moving forward. Like I'm not very precious when it comes to this sort of thing. So if I could find the right sort of people, like just one person in a different location who is willing to facilitate and host, then I would quite happily just have them host an event and it be sort of part of the conversations movement. But they can put their own twist on it or do their own thing there, or just do what I've done. Because for me, like simplicity is key here, right? So I'm just keeping it super simple. Like the event just requires me to talk at the start. And then most of the event, I'm just going to be sitting there enjoying the fact that there's like, I'm not going to be doing much, right? Because the whole point is that people are engaging in these activities. So I think that's the beauty of it too, is that it's actually going to be relatively easy once I do a couple of them just to really get into the groove. And then I'd hope to find people that might be willing to put their hand up and say, yeah, I'd host one for you in a different location. And then, that can kind of almost franchise out in a way.
Right. I think it's a great idea. And as we lose the art of conversation more and more, it becomes even more key that we don't lose it completely, that we revive it and resurrect it and get it back into a place where it's very intentional and it can be so fun. I mean, you're talking about laughter in the one episode. You're talking about a favorite live event in an episode. I mean, those are just those are are fun things to chat about with a friend. So I love this whole thing. And I know you're
Mhm.
getting really good feedback from everybody. And I'd love to have you on back again to talk about how it's going and to really continue to share. It's, we can use the word promote. Sometimes that's got kind of a negative connotation. I really
Yeah.
like the word share because
Hmm.
I want to share what you're doing because it's so valuable. It's so
Yeah.
valuable that we continue connecting with one another and taking that time out to do that in a really intentional way. I mean, there is no downside to this whatsoever. And like you say, you want to keep it simple, which,
Hmm.
is that makes it more sustainable for you and for the people who participate. Is
Totally.
there anything
Yeah.
else that you feel like you didn't get to say that you want to say right now as we conclude?
No, honestly, I think it's just a case of reminding people that, Conversations Week, it's happening the 6th to the 12th of May. Um, we've all got that someone we could, if you as a listener take the time to just think about someone that you've been meaning to check in with for the last month or so. And you could use Conversations Week as, I guess, that excuse, whether you
Yeah.
get together and have a beer, or whether you visit a relative, or whether you have a call with someone. And if you do, I'd love to hear about it. You can share stories again on our website, conversationsmovement.com, or you can message us on Instagram at conversationsmovement. And speaking of, I believe, Rechelle, that you have participated already,
I
kind of
did.
pre-Conversations Week. How
I
did that go? Who did you
did.
chat to?
I did. I chatted with my friend Bonnie, who I met through work. And at the time, I live in San Diego. At the time, she lived in Idaho, and we met through work in children's theater. And we struck up this great friendship. And then she moved to Oklahoma. So in either event, she was not very close by, right? She was far away. So
Right.
it takes, you have to be more intentional with keeping in contact. We hadn't talked in the longest time, and out of nowhere we kind of texted, hey, let's catch up. Hey, yeah, let's catch up. And it was just so wonderful to get to talk to her and
Mm.
to hear what's going on in her life, and went through each of the kids and her husband and her work and how it's going in their new home. And it just was so sweet. It was a wonderful, sweet conversation. And I was just really happy to, like you say, to have had the excuse
Yeah.
to say, my gosh, let's catch. It's just, as you say, just as simple as, hey, it's been a while, let's catch up. And it was
Yeah.
just great. We were like, no time had gone by. We
Mm.
were just,
Mm.
catching up. And it was
Yeah.
wonderful. And, we hadn't talked in the longest time. At the very end, she's like, I love you. And I said, I love you too. And it
Mhm.
just, that reminder that there are, people out there that care about you and that you care about, even if you don't get to have them in your day-to-day life, they're
Yeah.
there. And it's so worth taking a few moments of your time and having the conversation.
Mhm. And I think what you've said there about kind of it feeling like no time had passed, like I can fully resonate with that. I mean,
Yes.
it's amazing. Like I've had conversations with people that I hadn't chatted to in like 3-4 years, and then we're just straight back into it as if no time has passed.
Right.
And the jokes are still there, and the way you converse is still the same. And yeah, it's just an amazing feeling to have that kind of that
Yeah.
reconnection. So yeah, you're the first participant of Conversations Week. So thank you.
Oh, I'm so excited to have that distinction. And I'm going to be sure and fill out my form on the website because I want to be sure I'm participating. Definitely. And
Awesome.
as I told you, I am, we're going to have this episode, and then we're going to be sure that we do what we can to help share the goodness of what you're doing, because it's very exciting, Chris. And any way at any time that I can support you, I would consider it an absolute pleasure to do so.
I really appreciate it, Rechelle. Thanks for having me back on, and thanks for participating. And yeah, thanks in advance for all the help you're going to provide going forward as well.
My pleasure, Chris. Thanks.